Today's partner is Hantverkarkollen. They help you compare your suppliers when you are building new features to your home, like a kitchen or a bathroom. They will basically go through and audit the potential people that will actually work on your home and provide you with a secure report that gives you insight into who you should and also who you should not be hiring. That's hantverkarkollen.se. Hello everyone and welcome to How the Pod, the place where we pick the brains of changemakers and we get to talk about tech and society by sitting on the amphitheater of our guest's brain. Today we've got the founder of ImagiLabs with us. She is a UX researcher with a background in neuroscience, and she studied at the New York University but also at KTH, the Royal Academy of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden. She's invented, together with her team, a teen programming toy, making programming more accessible for teenage girls. It's a person I've followed for a few years and that I completely adore. A big warm welcome to you, Dora. How are you? How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here. And it's going well. It's an exciting period and I can't wait to just chat more because, as you said, we've been in touch for years, even from the times before ImagiLabs. So it's exciting to be able to catch up now.
And how did it all start?
Right. So the exciting thing is that it was really just like a natural transition from studying, from being passionate about a problem, and then sort of bit by bit getting more encouragement and more confidence and sort of like more passion that our side project could actually turn into a startup. So I was studying at KTH. I was studying a master's program in human-computer interaction. And naturally, as part of the degree, I worked a lot with user-centered design. And I did a particular project in user-centered design research, where I worked together with teenage girls to try to co-create different product ideas that they would want to use to learn coding. And so here, again, really, it was all about the problem and trying to start with the problem and then bringing in the end users to create a solution around that. And the reason why I was so passionate about the problem in particular, which was getting more girls into tech, is because I myself have had worked and studied in the tech fields and industry, and of course experienced sort of the lack of diversity and the disproportion between genders. And so I was sort of looking for a particular segment of this problem that I could feel like I could really make an impact on. And so that happened to be related to how a lot of girls drop their interest, but also their confidence in tech in their early teen years. And so essentially I had this project around working with girls, listening to their input and trying to create an ultimate solution that would make it fun and encouraging and inviting for them to get into tech. And so from this research project, we had an idea of a product and an online community that would make it more fun and relatable to learn coding. And from there, it's sort of like a lot of things happening at the same time. I was taking a few entrepreneurship courses. I was attending a few startup events in Stockholm. I also started an organization called Women at EIT, where we invited a few female entrepreneurs to talk to us. And so all these different sort of experiences, I think, were really important for me to finally have the guts to say that, okay, I think I also want to turn this idea into a startup. But even then, it really didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like in the movies that we write an idea on a napkin and then next day we register a company. But it was more so that we started to work on this side project. We applied for a few grants. We made our first prototype. We started to test. And it really wasn't until we had our first paying customer who literally wanted to pay us that I realized that I needed a company to be able to make that happen and charge for our product and service.
That's a good reason to start a company.
I think so too. I always advise everybody to sort of delay that part of it. I think the admin shouldn't take over actually the idea and the problem solving phase.
Yeah. And how does the toy look today? Because I know that I met you at the Tech Cloud Festival. You were in the room next to me. I was doing my dancing robots, and you were doing your ImagiLabs toy for, well, basically the same target group.
Right. Exactly. So that was in September 2018, and that was actually our first paying customer at Tech Club Festival. So that's the particular event. And so what happened then, we had our original product idea, which was going to be a programmable phone case, the Imagi case. But for the Tech Club Festival, we were looking to create something that was sort of simpler, that we could create ourselves. We needed 30 units of some sort of toy that we could use to teach coding. And so what happened is that the month before this event, Beatrice and I literally manually created these 30 prototypes. I was 3D printing, she was soldering, and the toy that we had at the time was this small cube, what we called the Imagi Cube at the time. And we had a very, very basic version of our app where you could essentially code in Python and upload your code to this gadget that would visualize your code. And that's sort of the core of the experience, and that was the core at the time.
And as I remember it, it's like it's a case for a phone, so the girls can kind of program a blinking heart or something else on their iPhone case.
Right, that was the original idea.
And the workshop was like two hours.
Right, but at the workshop, we are actually focusing on learning basic programming, and we've always been teaching Python, so a real programming language. And we've always been focusing on how to make the real programming language sort of more graspable by bringing visual examples to each coding concept. So, creating a for loop or using a for loop to create a rainbow and whatnot. And so that's what it was. But right now, what it is today, the Imagi Charm, and that's our product on the market, is what we call a smart accessory. It is a keychain or a bag accessory, so you can hang it on your backpack, hang it on your keychain. And some people call it like a code your own Tamagotchi. I guess it's similarly sized to a Tamagotchi, and it has this display that you can essentially customize through code. So the physical component, the hardware that we have, is really sort of a companion to your coding journey, and it is adding the tangible aspects to our offering and to the experience. But most of the magic sort of happens in our app, where we have a community where users are sharing their coding projects, where we have tutorials, or as we call them, episodes of learning games, where you're able to gain coding superpowers. So every single sort of coding concept is called a superpower, and you're gaining these through learning and creating in the app. And we also have certain challenges. So right now there's a holiday coding challenge running, and so we have sort of like thematic challenges to encourage more creativity and creation.
That sounds amazing. And so, like, how long has it taken you? Because I met you way before you started this, but then this kind of grew up, and it's had its infant years, it's had its baby years, and now it's like a full-fledged teenager or it has moved away from home, in my mind. And now you're like a legit business, you're actually doing this, you're selling them. It's Christmas, more or less, in a few days as we're recording. And I'm assuming that you could basically, it's going to be a long winter. People can keep coding this throughout winter because there's not going to be a whole lot more to do.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting year. But so actually, yeah. So when we had this first prototype 2 years ago, from then it took us a couple of months to arrive to a concept that we were ready to go on Kickstarter with. So in 2019, in June of 2019, we launched a Kickstarter campaign where we sold more than 550 Imagi charms, or I guess the ideas of the Imagi charm. And we had close to 600 backers. And from there, it took us another year to actually get the manufactured, mass-produced Imagi charms out to the market. And so we started to deliver our Kickstarter backers Imagi charms just this summer, June 2020. And then at that point, we started to sell our products in our own web shop. Later, we went into Design Target at the beginning of the fall. And we also launched on Amazon. And actually, that has been sort of our biggest channel right now, especially, as you said, pre-holidays. And what's really exciting for us is that we've been seeing a lot of recipients of the Imagine Charm get, very interested in coding, continue using it. But like you said, the months to come will be, of course, tough period for everyone staying home, but also it's going to be exciting period for us to learn from our first really real users who are receiving the Imagine Charms for Christmas, how to make our content, how to make our community, encourage them to keep up the activity of coding, because really our long-term mission is not just to have a toy to play with once or twice. And I guess that's a big difference between just being a toy versus being almost like a game or like a long-term community, where really where we're pushing ourselves is to creating a well-crafted journey that has multiple goals that you can achieve, that you can continue growing in your coding journey for not just weeks but months or even years to come. And so that's what we are working on right now, creating more content, creating more activities around our community, and more touch points to engage with us, so it actually becomes something that you don't just do a couple times.
That's amazing. It's such a well thought through experience. I haven't tried it myself, but I'm actually going to get one, and hoping I can do it with my boyfriend's daughter and son that I think are in the appropriate group.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So I was wondering, so how has it been developing hardware? Because I know that's radically different from a lot of the stuff that I've done when I develop my own stuff. Like I can build a website, I can do basic stuff, right? If you just program or even functions, but building hardware and getting stuff from China is different.
Yes, it's hard. They say hardware is hard. And I think, to be honest, it has become so much easier, right? So, and this is the world that I know where even hardware has become so much easier. Like you can 3D print, you can go and get an Arduino and do your first prototype without even being an optical engineer. I mean, the very, very first prototype for what we have was literally just me going into Shell & Co and buying a Arduino and then an LED shield and, sort of just prototyping out the experience. And you don't have to be an engineer even to be able to do that. So that's really exciting. You can really get started with the prototypes. But then there's really that big sort of like bridge that needs to be built, crossing from a prototype to an actual product. And so that's where platforms like Kickstarter come into place, right? And they can really help. But I mean, we also did raise an angel round to be able to support us. It wouldn't have been enough just with a Kickstarter. I'm sure there's ways to do it, but from our end, we actually sort of managed from all the different financial sources that you can imagine. We did the crowdfunding, we did an actual investment round, we had revenue from service on the side, we did everything to sort of support this business to move forward. And of course, that was sort of a big commitment to put in the money, the energy, the time to develop a product. And that you can't just like iterate the same way as you do with software, right? And especially when you start out with a startup, these days, I think everyone always talks about, being lean and just running these really quick experiments. And to some extent, you can start doing that with the hardware prototypes, but there will be that point where you just have to commit to it and you just have to try to make it as perfect as possible because you know that you won't be able to make changes. And I guess that's like a pretty big difference in mindset. As well, whereas like in startups, you try to be doing things to 80%, but you can't do that with the hardware. And that's where it's actually super cool that I have one of my co-founders who is a hardware engineer, and she is incredible at paying attention to details. So I can keep up the more like startup-y mindset on the software and on the marketing, and she was able to really perfect that this hardware will work and that all the testing is correct and like we got all the certificates, like everything has to be done well when you get to that.
And have there been any like bumps in the road where you really had to like change your strategy, or at what point did you have any form of like failure where you were like, oh God, how do we handle this? And how did you manage that? And this is actually a listener question. They said, okay. We would love to hear we would love to hear about professional failure, since you can learn so much from it? And I love that question. So
I mean, I love the question too, but to be completely fair, I mean, I think we're like it's a matter of wording, right? So I guess you only really fail if you stop trying, as they say. So we've sort of failed so many times, but we don't think of it as failure. You know, if you learned from it, then it wasn't a fail. So you either win or you learn, but you don't fail. And so yeah, so many things that we've been doing just haven't worked, and it means we just have to try something else. Um, if you have done mistakes, you've also done, I guess, mistakes in the sense that some of them, you know, just maybe not knowing well enough, like how to explain what our product does, and you know, but all of that you can only really know that you made a mistake or you failed if you go out and try. So I think so many things that we had to improve came from the fact that we went out of the building and started to talk to people. We also had like a particular example I can think of, for example, with the hardware as well. We didn't originally have all the code ready, so all the firmware ready in its shape that we wanted to for the factory to upload it to the Imagitrams when they are manufacturing it. So between the time when the Imagitrams were manufactured and they arrived to Sweden, which was about a month and a half, my co-founder and our hardware engineer, they managed to like finish the code, but that meant that they manually had to reprogram every single Imagitram, 2,000 of them. And so, so you know, there's mistakes that we do, and then we learn from them. But yeah, we don't really think of them as failures because we just keep going.
yeah, absolutely. I think that sounds like a lot of box openings.
Exactly. It was a lot of box opening.
Is there anything you would have done differently, and how? I mean, not just with the boxes and the firmware.
I think this is also it's a big mentality question, right? I like to say I have like this very extreme open mindset. I don't know if you've read Grit, the book by Angela Duckworth, but yeah, if someone has not read it yet, I highly recommend. But yeah, I think I very much have that mentality that you know, you just have to persist most of the time and really learn from what you're doing. But also I think you have to be very forgiving to yourself, that really the reason why you know that you could have done it differently is because you did it and it turned out not to work, right? So I tried not to be paralyzed by sort of the fear of not making things perfect. I much rather have a mindset of you know, doing and trying, because I think when you are sort of afraid of like the past mistakes and then that they could become mistakes again, then you would just become really paralyzed. So I'm very much having a bias towards action. And so, you know, I'm really happy with the progress that we've been making, and we could only really get here through all the things that we did the way we did it. So I try not to be too caught up with the past mistakes in that sense. Of course, I think just in general, what is it that I like to remind myself to do more of? Like what has helped me a lot is really talking to other founders and just people who have been in the similar, like in very similar positions. And in my experience, here in Stockholm, at least, the whole ecosystem is so open-minded. And if you reach out to people with a specific question that is clearly their area of expertise, even very, very busy people are willing to give some of their time and knowledge to you. And so that has really helped us move forward. And so that comes both in terms of product and marketing and fundraising. Like it's really been for the people who have supported us that we could move fast. So that's just like one of my sort of big advices in general. I think just be very aware of all the things that you don't know and just ask for help. And that helps a lot.
And you participated in the Apple Bootcamp. How was that? What are the takeaways from that?
Right. Yeah, that was a really, really exciting experience. It was, again, in very early days. We haven't, like, this was even before Kickstarter, so we're really far from even launching. But we got to spend 2 weeks in Cupertino at the Apple headquarters and work with Apple engineers and designers to sort of think about our product and revamp it. it was at a time where dark mode was just coming out. So there's definitely one lasting impact that I redesigned the entire app to be in dark mode, and it has been ever since. So that's like a very tangible outcome of it. But overall, I think it was very exciting in terms of just like learning from designers and engineers, and to me as a person with a UX background, I just really appreciated like the attention to detail that they have at Apple, but also just the knowledge that they have in general about like the principles of design. And I still try to go back to those notes, and I think obviously one thing that they do really well is just making things very simple, right? Like taking away so much. It's not about adding more features, but it's more about doing a few things and doing that well. So I think that helped us with sort of like the foundation of the app. It was a very, very hands-on program. But also during that bootcamp, we were together with, I think, 10 other female-founded startups. And that network has also been extremely useful. So again, I think it's just like going back to this networks of people that has been a huge help ever since. So that's a sort of like another exciting aspect of it.
And if you were to give any suggestions or tips for future entrepreneurs or even existing entrepreneurs, maybe those are two different questions. What would they be if you had 3 for every group?
3 for every group. Well, the aspiring ones, I think, in my experience, it's been really important for us that we started with a problem that we are truly passionate about solving. The solution has been changing, and I believe it will continue to change. So being really passionate about the problem and the space, and being dedicated and motivated by that is, I think, what helps you like drive through the really hard days. Then also, I think finding co-founders that you work well with and want to work with in the long run has also been a huge part of why I have enjoyed ImagiLabs so much. It's just simply working with people that I love working with. And again, that also comes back to the whole idea of there will be days when you just simply won't be as motivated, or and then having people around that can help you uplift, or it works both ways. That's really important. And then I think, for me, the third one is really just sort of like talk to the users and, be embarrassed about what you have, and just like having this principle, right? That like, if you're not embarrassed about your product when you show it to users, then it's been too late. So I really have that mentality, so it's, I think you need to just be sort of brave and show it to users and listen to users from the early days. And I think some of the recent things, and I would love to hear from other entrepreneurs who have been doing it now for like, a year or two or a little longer. Obviously, I think like the difficulties for me is also like keeping focus. And I think like reminding yourself to stay true to your like true North Star, right? And then keep that focus. And like, I don't know, maybe write it on a piece of paper or like return back to that. I think that's a really important thing, because it's so easy to get distracted when things start to move and there is maybe, requests coming from different direction, and maybe there's like a new segment that would want to use your product, but that's not the segment that you were building for, so keeping that focus and not getting distracted by opportunities that might sound good in the moment. I think that's a really hard thing to do, but something important that I would just like suggest to focus on. And I think along those, sorry, there's so many ideas now, but along those lines, I had this realizations recently too, that like asking for feedback and input is so important. But at the end of the day, right, it's you who know your business the best. So it always comes down to, I think I grew to learn and appreciate this now, that it's important to take input from many directions, but then, take your decision for your business. Because at the end of the day, like, you've been doing this for a long time, and it has to make sense for your problem, for your customers, and sort of like stay true to that.
And what was it like fundraising?
A good topic. Yes, fundraising is, fundraising is it's an exciting topic. So ImagiLabs hasn't raised funding from VC funds yet. All our investors are angels, and we've received investment from Propel Capital and Stink, or incubators here in Sweden. So I can only really speak for the angel fundraise for now. I think fundraising is hard for everyone, and of course, as a young female founder, you also think about the fact that, in the Nordics, maybe something around 1% of funding goes to all female funded teams, and maybe something like 7% to mixed teams. So you start sort of questioning what are the odds that this can work out. But I really just try to keep it focused on the idea that, it's hard for everyone. So I might as well just get used to hearing no's. And really, fundraising is a lot of hearing no's. And so I think, you just have to be able to keep up your positive spirit, but also it's important to take the feedback and react to whether it's a good time to fundraise, what are the things that you can improve. So I think you have to keep up this crazy positivity, but you also have to be really open to the feedback and sort of question some of your like baseline assumptions about your business and see how you can make it like even I guess like a better business plan sort of. But of course, I think this goes back again, like if you're like, not everyone has to like this business. In fact, if you would try to please everyone, that would mean that you're not really making anything different, right? So I think one just has to be very like focused on the fact that, like you're probably going to build a business that is exciting and relevant for some, and that it isn't for others, and you don't have to take that personally.
So how has it been bootstrapping a company with, what I understand is, are you roomies?
We were living together with Beatrice, my co-founder. Actually, we've been roommates in college, and then we lived together when we started the company. And we went, actually, the two of us went 10 months without salary from ImagiLabs, working full-time on the company. So that was a real bootstrapping period. And it was an incredible experience. Really, it was one of those times where we just had such focus and such passion for what we were doing that, we were on a clear mission. So I think that's where you have this sense of being on a mission together. And it was really exciting to sort of get started that way. But of course, the company building is a longer term process. So, you have to find some stability and some boundaries. And now we don't actually spend all our time together, but we still, of course, spend a lot of time with both the business and as friends together.
Yeah. And are you like making your own money now? How do you break even, or are you?
So, yeah, that's an interesting question. Because I think what you have to, this is an active choice that companies have to make, whether you're aiming to, become profitable and just stay profitable, or whether you would like to invest more in growth and how quickly you want to grow and how much funding you need for that. And so, especially the last month, it's been, our sales have been up quite a bit because of Christmas, but we're also looking to invest really heavily in our growth and in our future potential. And so we have been working with, we've gotten investments in the past, and so we've had ways to finance also our growth and not just work out of the revenues that we're making.
And what's in store for the future? Let's say a year or two.
A year from now.
Oops.
Yeah. So I think I touched upon this earlier that it's been a really exciting year with sort of focusing on launching the Magic Charm and starting to see it being used in actually both in homes, so parents purchasing it, and also in classrooms. So we've done a couple of pilots and we've worked with a couple of organizations who are using it. And what we're really looking to focus on now is to enhance the sort of digital component for longer term use, to build our community and really see our users progress from not just 0 to 1, but also continue learning to code. And we're looking to launch new sort of digital experiences, as we call them, that will allow our community to keep learning to code. So there's a couple sort of more exciting developments coming there for a longer term learning journey with ImagiLabs.
That sounds great. Looking forward to seeing that. Do you have anything last that you would like to add?
I really like to encourage everyone who has the slightest aspiration to start a business to just do it. And I really think of it in a way where, to me, I guess the talent and the time that you have are incredible resources that you have sort of the power over where you want to put it. And so for me, I think the main reason why I am working on my own company is because it's extremely important for me that I spend my time and my energy with something that I believe is creating an impact. And so I think it's really exciting to have the opportunity to sort of decide where I want to create impact and how to use our resources for that. So yeah, I mean, I'm really just hoping to encourage more future founders to go for that route and to see what change they can make with their skill sets and their time in the world.
So I guess on that note, we're going to say thank you ever so much for taking time and hanging out with us. Getting to sit on the amphitheater of your brain and seeing how this magic has been created.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye. My friend Alexander Pärleros over at Framgångspodden, one of Sweden's largest podcasts, has now gathered several of the life-changing profiles that he interviews in his podcast, but now under a new roof called framgångsakademin.se, where they provide longer and more practical courses. So go to framgångsakademin.se if you want to change yourself, help yourself develop and reach your goals.